what does it actually mean to be alive? It sounds like a super simple question, right? But the more you dig into it, the blurrier those lines get. So today, we're going to dive into one of the biggest mysteries out there. What's the secret ingredient? What really separates the living from the, well, not living? I mean, seriously, think about it for a second. You see a dog running around, a person shouting, easy, they're alive. But what if they're just asleep? Okay, well, you can see them breathing, fair enough. But what about a plant? It's just sitting there, not really doing anything you can see. Is it any less alive? Yeah, the obvious signs, the stuff we see with our own eyes, they really don't tell the whole story.
So if you ask a biologist this question, they'll tell you the real action, the true signature of life, is totally invisible to us. It's all happening at the molecular level. We're talking about constant, relentless movement inside every living cell. This is exactly why there's still a debate about viruses, right? On their own, they show none of this molecular hustle. They only spring to life when they hijack a living cell.
And this frames life as this constant, epic battle. See, everything in the universe naturally tends towards disorder, towards breaking down. But living things, they're the ultimate rebels. They are these incredibly organized structures that are always fighting that decay, constantly repairing and maintaining themselves, molecule by tiny molecule.
So to win this fight, every living thing has to solve a few key problems. And that's our roadmap for today. We're going to look at 5 of them. First, what's the actual job of staying alive? Then, how do you get energy? After that, how do you make that energy useful? How do you deliver supplies? And finally, what do you do with all the garbage?
All right, let's jump right into that first big question, defining the work itself. What are these core maintenance jobs that everything alive has to do just to stay in the game?
Biologists have a name for this: life processes. And really, it's just all the essential, non-stop stuff that an organism does to keep from, well, falling apart. It doesn't matter if you're sprinting or sound asleep, this maintenance is running 24/7. It's the fundamental cost of being alive.
Okay, but all that round-the-clock maintenance takes energy, a ton of it actually. And that brings us right to our second huge problem. How do you fuel the machine? Where does all that energy to fight off chaos even come from?
Well, it turns out life on Earth basically came up with 2 brilliant strategies. On one team, you've got the autotrophs, the self-feeders, think plants. They literally make their own food from scratch using simple stuff. And on the other team, you have the heterotrophs, the other feeders. And yep, that's us. We have to get our energy by eating other living things.
So for the self-feeders, the magic trick is photosynthesis. It basically boils down to 3 steps. First, the plant's chlorophyll soaks up sunlight. Then it converts that light into chemical energy, which it uses to split water molecules. And finally, it uses that energy to build its own food, carbohydrates, out of carbon dioxide from the air. Pretty amazing, huh?
Now for heterotrophs, for us, it's a whole different ballgame. Since we can't make our own food, we have to eat it. And to handle that, we've evolved this incredibly complicated internal factory, our digestive system. It's basically this long, specialized tube designed to take, say, a pizza and break it down into tiny molecules our body can actually absorb and use.
But how does that breakdown really happen? I mean, it's not just about chewing food into smaller bits. The real magic is chemical, and it's done by these amazing little things called enzymes. You can think of them as a tiny, super efficient molecular demolition crew that dismantles big food molecules into small, simple pieces the body can work with.
Okay, so whether you're a plant that made its own food or an animal that ate it, you now have fuel, like glucose. But here's the catch. That's not enough. Your cells can't just run on glucose directly. You've got to convert it into a form your cells can actually spend. And that leads us right to the third great problem of life.
Everybody, meet ATP. This molecule is the universal energy currency for all life on Earth. The best way to think about it is like a tiny rechargeable battery. The food you eat charges up these little ATP batteries, and then your cells can spend that energy to do, well, everything, from flexing a muscle to thinking a thought. It is literally the spark of life.
Now, there are 2 main ways organisms cash in their glucose for ATP. First, you've got aerobic respiration. This is the big one. It needs oxygen, it happens in your mitochondria, and it gives you a massive energy payout. Super efficient. Then there's anaerobic respiration. No oxygen needed, but the energy return is way, way smaller. It's kind of like the quick and dirty option when you're in a pinch.
All right, on to the next challenge. So you've got your energy, you've got your raw materials. Now what? How in the world do you get all that good stuff to every single one of the trillions of cells in a complex organism? This is problem number 4, the massive logistical challenge of transportation.
Plants have a really elegant solution for this. It's basically a two-part plumbing system. You've got the xylem. Think of it as a one-way straw just for pulling water and minerals up from the roots. Then you've got the phloem, which is more like a two-way delivery service, taking the food made in the leaves and shipping it wherever the plant needs it, up, down, all around.
But for a big, active animal, that kind of simple plumbing just won't cut it. Tiny single-celled organisms can rely on diffusion, where stuff just kind of slowly spreads out. But for us, get this. This is mind-blowing. If we had to rely only on diffusion, it's estimated it would take 3 years for one molecule of oxygen to get from our lungs to our toes. 3 years! Clearly, we needed a much, much faster system.
And that system is, of course, the circulatory system. It's an absolute masterpiece of biological engineering. You've got a super powerful pump, the heart. You've got this vast network of highways and side roads, your arteries, veins, and capillaries that reach every last cell. And you've even got an emergency repair crew on standby, platelets ready to plug any leaks.
What's really clever, especially in mammals and birds, is something called double circulation. It means for every one trip around the body, blood actually passes through the heart twice. One loop goes to the lungs to get oxygenated, then back to the heart. The second loop takes that fresh, oxygen-rich blood and pumps it out to the whole body. This separation keeps the pressure high and the delivery super efficient, which is exactly what you need for a high-energy, warm-blooded lifestyle.
Okay, last big problem. All of these life processes, all this energy production, it creates waste. And getting rid of those toxic byproducts isn't just about keeping things neat and tidy. It is, quite literally, a matter of life and death.
In us humans, the absolute heroes of waste removal are the kidneys. Think of them as these incredibly sophisticated filtration stations. They are constantly cleaning our blood, pulling out harmful nitrogenous waste, and mixing it with water to make urine so we can safely get it out of our system.
Plants, on the other hand, do things totally differently. No kidneys, no problem. They've come up with some really clever workarounds. They'll just store waste in leaves that are going to fall off anyway, or they'll turn it into harmless stuff like gums and resins. They can even just lock it away in tiny storage units inside their cells or dump some of it into the soil. Pretty resourceful. So, when you pull all this together, what have we got? Being alive isn't just a state of being. It's not passive at all. It's an incredibly active, non-stop process. It's the constant, energy-hungry job of solving all these problems, from finding fuel to taking out the trash, every single moment of every single day.
And that leaves us with one last really profound thought to chew on. We've seen that a living thing is this collection of complex, interconnected systems all working together. So, what does it mean when we can start sharing those systems? Through things like organ transplants. If you can take a piece of one person's life machinery and put it in someone else, where does one individual life really end and another one begin? Makes you think, doesn't it?